She was tired. Exhausted, really. Another long day of work had left her body aching and her mind running in circles. She walked through the small apartment, careful not to wake her baby, who was finally sleeping peacefully in the corner crib. His tiny chest rose and fell with each gentle breath. She crouched down, brushing a soft kiss across his forehead, feeling a pang of love mixed with worry. How was she going to manage everything alone? Bills, work, sleepless nights, and the little joys that felt bigger than the world sometimes. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, glowing in the dim light. It was a message from her sister, the one person who tried to stay close even though they lived miles apart. "Send me a photo of him, I haven't seen him in so long," it read. She smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest, and reached for her phone. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked him up, holding him close. "Okay, little guy. Let's show Auntie how handsome you are tonight," she whispered, feeling a soft laugh escape her lips. She snapped a few photos, trying to capture the roundness of his cheeks, the tiny curl of hair on his head, and the sparkle in his eyes. Each photo reminded her of why she worked so hard, why she pushed herself even when the days were long and lonely. In her tired state, she didn't notice her finger hovering over the wrong contact. She typed a quick message to go with the photo. "Look at my little man. He's growing so fast. Can't wait for you to see him soon." Then, without thinking twice, she hit send. It wasn't her sister who received the message. Across the city, in a high-rise office filled with glass walls and the hum of luxury, a man stared at his phone, surprised by a sudden notification. He was a billionaire, a man used to controlling everything in his life, every decision, every business move, every wedding plan. Yet here was a stranger's message, a photo of a baby that didn't belong to him. The man frowned, curious. The child had large, bright eyes that seemed to look straight through the screen. Something about the baby's expression tugged at something deep inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. His life was filled with meetings, contracts, and expectations, but nothing like this small, innocent face. He typed back a simple, polite message, assuming it was a mistake. "I think you sent this to the wrong number." She read it and froze. Her heart skipped a beat. Panic rose in her chest. "Oh no, I am so sorry. I meant to send this to my sister. I didn't mean to bother you." He didn't respond immediately. He stared at the photo again, feeling a strange pull. She was just a stranger, yet her words in the photo made his world feel softer, warmer, more alive. He typed again, this time curious. "It's a beautiful baby. What's his name?" She hesitated. Was this stranger really interested in her son? Did she even want to explain? But there was something in his tone, polite, kind, not intrusive. She typed back carefully. "His name is Leo. He just turned 8 months old last week." Leo. She loved saying his name out loud. It reminded her of soft mornings, his first smiles, and the endless nights spent rocking him to sleep. She sat on the couch, phone in hand, feeling a strange mix of anxiety and calm. How could a simple mistake lead to a conversation like this? As the days went by, messages kept coming. The billionaire asked simple questions. Does he sleep well? What does he like to eat? Does he have a favorite toy? At first she answered cautiously, not wanting to reveal too much. But there was honesty in his replies, a warmth that surprised her. He didn't judge her struggles. He didn't ask for anything in return. She found herself sharing more than she intended. About her work, about trying to make ends meet, about the nights she cried softly after putting Leo to bed. She told him how hard it was to be alone, but how much she loved her little boy, how every smile made everything worth it. And he listened. He listened like no one had listened to him in years. In his world of power and money, people flattered him, used him, or tried to impress him. But she just talked. She didn't care about his wealth, his status, or his life. She only cared about her baby and doing her best. Late one night, he admitted something he hadn't told anyone before. "I can't stop thinking about your messages. About your son. I've been planning my wedding, but suddenly everything feels empty." She stared at her phone, unsure how to respond. She had never imagined that her accidental message could affect someone like him. But there was honesty in his words, a vulnerability she hadn't expected. She typed carefully. "Sometimes life makes us notice things we've been ignoring. Maybe this is one of those moments for you." He didn't reply right away, but she felt the weight of his words, the sincerity behind them. She wondered if he realized how much courage it took for her to share her life, her struggles and her dreams with someone she barely knew. Days turned into a week, and their messages became routine. She would send little updates about Leo, a funny thing he did, a new word he tried, a small victory at daycare, and he would reply, not with judgment or advice, but with genuine interest and warmth. One evening, she accidentally dropped her phone on the floor while rushing to pick up Leo. The screen cracked slightly, but the notifications kept coming. She picked it up, laughing softly at her clumsiness, and there it was, a message from him. "Can I ask you something unusual?" Her heart beat faster. "Of course," she typed back. "I feel like I know your son in a way that doesn't make sense." His eyes, they remind me of someone I once knew, a long time ago. Maybe it's nothing, but I can't stop thinking about it. Her fingers froze. Could it be? Could he be talking about someone from her past, or was it just a coincidence? She didn't answer immediately, unsure of what to say without revealing too much. But he didn't rush her. His patience, the calm in his words, made her feel safe. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she had to be strong all the time. She could just be herself, a tired mom, loving her child, making mistakes, and finding small joys in simple things. She remembered the night Leo was born. The fear, the excitement, the overwhelming love. She had faced challenges then, and she faced challenges now. But talking to him, it made her feel less alone. And somehow she felt like she was sharing that love with someone who could understand it. Someone who didn't need anything from her except the truth. That night, she sat by the crib watching Leo sleep, phone in hand, reading his latest message. He had asked about the little noises babies make when they dream. She typed back carefully, explaining what Leo did, how his tiny hands twitched, how he smiled even in sleep. He replied quickly, almost as if he was watching her describe it in real time. "I wish I could see that. It sounds perfect. I haven't seen a baby smile like that in so long." Her chest tightened. Perfect. That was exactly how she felt every time she looked at him. And to think it had all started with one wrong message. Over the next few days, she found herself waiting for his messages, looking forward to the small connection that had grown between them. It was strange, unexplainable, but comforting. She told herself it was just friendship, but deep down, she felt the beginnings of something more, an understanding, a recognition of hearts meeting in a world that often felt cold. One morning, she woke up to a long message from him. It was unlike the others, deeper, more personal. "I don't know how to say this, but talking to you, learning about your life and your son, it's making me question everything I've been doing. I've been so busy with work, weddings, appearances, but this feels real. Do you think? Could we meet? Just once to talk?" Her heart raced. Meet him, really? She looked at Leo sleeping beside her, tiny fingers curled, hair messy from sleep, and felt a rush of protective instinct. And yet, there was a pull in her heart, a curiosity she couldn't ignore. She typed back slowly, carefully, "Maybe we can meet, but only if it's safe. Only if it's real. I don't know you, but I trust you want to be honest," he replied almost immediately. "I promise, no games. Just honesty." She set her phone down, watching Leo stir in his sleep, a small yawn escaping his lips. The weight of the decision pressed on her chest, but also, a strange excitement began to grow. For the first time in a long time, she felt hope. A hope that something unexpected, something accidental, something utterly unplanned could change everything. That one wrong message might just be the start of a story neither of them had imagined. A story that could bring light into lives that had grown used to shadows. And as she watched her baby sleep, she whispered softly, "Maybe, just maybe, everything is about to change." The days that followed were different. She moved through her routine with the same tired steps, but her mind often wandered to the messages on her phone. Every beep made her pause, wondering if it was him. She had to remind herself to focus on work, on Leo, on the small life she had built with so much effort. Yet the thought of meeting him brought a strange mix of excitement and anxiety she couldn't shake. He, on the other hand, found himself unexpectedly distracted. Meetings and plans that had once filled every hour now felt heavy, dull, and meaningless. He caught himself thinking about her, about Leo, about the conversations they had shared. He had never been the type to feel this way about anyone he barely knew, and yet here he was, counting down the hours until her next message. Finally, the day of their meeting arrived. She dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that was comfortable yet neat, hoping it would give her confidence. Leo was bundled in his little jacket and hat, eyes bright and curious as he reached for her finger. She smiled down at him, feeling a mix of pride and nervousness. "Stay close, little man. Mommy has something important to do," she whispered. The cafe was quiet, tucked into a corner of the city far from the bustling streets outside. She arrived first, her nerves making her fingers fidget with her bag. Every few minutes she glanced at the door, wondering if he would even come. She had no idea what to expect, what kind of man he truly was beyond the messages. Would he be kind, serious, or just another person who would leave her life with empty words? When he walked in, the air seemed to shift. She noticed the careful way he looked around before his eyes settled on her. She froze for a moment. There he was, the man whose words had stirred something unfamiliar in her heart, whose curiosity about her life had made her feel seen. He walked up slowly, giving a small, polite smile. "Hello," he said softly, almost unsure of himself. His presence was striking, commanding in a way, yet gentle. He gestured toward the chair across from her. "May I sit?" She nodded, her voice caught in her throat. "Yes, please." For a moment, neither of them spoke. She kept Leo on her lap, feeling the baby shift and yawn, and he watched them quietly, a mix of awe and disbelief in his expression. The silence was not uncomfortable. It was heavy with unspoken questions, curiosity, and the slow realization that something important was about to happen. Finally, he spoke. "Leo, he's beautiful." His voice softened, and for a second he seemed unsure of how to continue. "You did a wonderful job raising him." Her chest tightened. Compliments from strangers were easy to brush off, but from him, it felt different, genuine. He wasn't just noticing the baby. He was noticing her effort, her care, the countless sacrifices she had made. She nodded slowly, smiling faintly. "Thank you. It hasn't been easy, but he's worth every sleepless night." He leaned back slightly, eyes not leaving them. "I can tell you're amazing." There was a pause, almost as if he was searching for the right words. "I don't know how to explain this, but seeing you, it feels like, I don't know. I've been looking for this without knowing it." She looked at him, trying to read the truth in his eyes. Was he exaggerating? Or was he speaking from his heart? She wanted to trust him, and something about the way he spoke made her believe that he was honest. Leo reached out, tiny fingers brushing his hand. The billionaire froze, staring at the baby with a mixture of wonder and hesitation. Leo giggled, a small, pure sound that seemed to fill the room. The man's eyes softened, almost misting. He lifted the baby carefully, letting Leo rest against him. "Hello, little one," he whispered. I feel like I've known you forever." She watched, stunned, as the interaction unfolded. The baby's comfort with him surprised her, and for the first time she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this meeting wasn't just a coincidence. Maybe it was the start of something that could change their lives. They talked for hours, though not about trivial things. She shared stories about Leo's first steps, his funny habits, and the nights she stayed awake just to hear him breathe. He shared pieces of his life too, not the business, not the wealth, but the emptiness he had felt despite having everything. They spoke honestly, without pretenses, and slowly, a connection grew stronger with every word. At one point, he reached for a small notebook from his bag. "I keep records of my life, unusual as it sounds," he said, flipping through the pages. "I write things down, thoughts, feelings, memories I can't forget, and sometimes I forget to live while I'm recording." He paused, looking at her intently. "But talking to you, it's making me remember what matters." She smiled softly, feeling tears welling up. "I think life has a way of showing us what's important when we least expect it. For me, it's been Leo. He's my reason, my center. And now, meeting you, it feels like maybe the world is bigger than just my small worries." He nodded, holding her words carefully as if they were fragile. "Yes, the world is bigger. And sometimes we find pieces we didn't know were missing." The conversation continued, drifting between laughter and quiet moments, between stories of hardship and little joys that seemed monumental in their own way. She found herself laughing freely, a sound that had been rare in recent months. And he found himself listening in a way he had never done before, absorbing every detail with curiosity and genuine care. Hours passed unnoticed. The cafe slowly emptied, the sunlight fading into the warm glow of the evening. She glanced at the clock, realizing how long they had been talking. I didn't expect to stay this long, she said, a hint of embarrassment in her voice. He smiled gently. Neither did I, but I'm glad we did. Sometimes the best things in life don't follow a plan. She looked at Leo, who was now dozing lightly in her arms, and felt a rush of emotion. This accidental meeting, started by one wrong message, had led to something real, something meaningful. And for the first time in a long time, she felt the possibility of hope, not just for her own life, but for Leo's future as well. As they prepared to leave, he spoke quietly, almost to himself. I know this sounds sudden, but I don't want to lose this. I want to be part of this, if you'll let me. Her heart skipped a beat. Part of what? She asked softly. Part of your life, Leo's life. If you'll have me, he said, his eyes earnest, steady. She looked at him, the weight of the moment pressing down. Could she trust him? Could she allow someone she barely knew into her small, fragile world? Yet, there was something in his presence, something in the way he had listened, the way he had been patient, that made her believe in the sincerity of his words. I don't know, she admitted honestly. This is a lot to take in, he nodded. I understand. I just needed you to know. I'll wait. No pressure, no rush, just honesty. They left the cafe together, careful to protect Leo from the chill of the evening. The streets were busy, filled with people rushing home, but for a moment, the world felt smaller, quieter, more intimate. She realized that sometimes life's biggest changes came in the smallest packages. A message sent by mistake, a smile, a conversation that could shift everything. Over the next few days, their communication continued, though now it was tinged with a different feeling. There was anticipation, curiosity, and the slow build of trust. She shared small updates about Leo's first steps across the living room, his fascination with the sounds of birds outside, the way he clutched her hand while trying to balance on tiny legs. He responded with awe, encouragement, and genuine questions that made her feel heard and respected. And he shared more of himself, too. Pieces of the man behind the wealth, the man behind the carefully crafted image of control and success. He admitted fears, regrets, and a longing he hadn't acknowledged in years. She found herself caring not just about the man in her messages, but the person he was, the part of him that had remained hidden beneath layers of responsibility and expectation. It was unusual, unexpected, and completely overwhelming at times. She had never imagined that one accidental photo could lead to a connection so profound. And yet every interaction left her with a sense of possibility, a quiet excitement that something beautiful could grow from the simplest of beginnings. One night, as she put Leo to bed, she paused to look at him sleeping peacefully. Her phone buzzed with a new message from him. She opened it, reading slowly. I can't stop thinking about today. I've realized that life is more than plans, more than schedules. It's about moments like this, people like you and him. She smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks. Yes, she whispered softly. It's about moments. And maybe, just maybe, the best ones are the ones we never planned for. For the first time in a long while, she felt lighter. The weight of loneliness, of struggle, of endless responsibility, it hadn't disappeared, but it felt more manageable. Because she had someone who understood, someone who cared, someone who had entered their lives by pure accident and had chosen to stay with honesty and kindness. And for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future where she didn't have to face everything alone, where her little family could grow, supported by trust, respect, and unexpected love, where the accidental message wasn't a mistake. It was the beginning of something extraordinary. Days passed since their first meeting at the cafe, and life moved in its usual rhythm for her, but with a subtle shift that she could feel deep inside. The messages kept coming, though now they were tinged with something new, a sense of closeness that neither had expected. She would send little updates about Leo, sometimes just a photo of his tiny hands clutching her finger or the mischievous way he tilted his head while playing with his toys. And each time his replies made her smile, often lingering long after the screen went dark. One morning, she was sitting by the kitchen window, Leo crawling nearby, making soft, giggling noises as he discovered a pile of building blocks scattered across the floor. She sipped her coffee, tired but peaceful, when her phone buzzed. It was a long message from him. She opened it, curiosity mixing with a touch of anxiety. I've been thinking a lot, he wrote, about your messages, about him, Leo, and something struck me today. I don't know if it's possible or if I'm imagining things, but there's something familiar in him. Something I've seen before years ago. I can't stop thinking about it," her heart skipped. "Familiar? What did he mean?" She looked at Leo, who as laughing as he tried to stack blocks higher than his tiny arms could reach. Was there really something in him that could stir such emotions in this stranger? She hesitated before replying, choosing her words carefully. "What do you mean by familiar?" She typed slowly. "Leo, he's my son. I've been raising him alone. Why would he seem familiar?" She waited, her fingers hovering over the phone as she watched Leo play. The pause between messages felt longer than usual. Then finally he replied, "I don't know how to explain it. It's a small detail, a mark under his chin. It reminds me of someone from my past. Someone I thought I had lost. I can't shake the feeling that there's a connection here I don't understand yet." Her breath caught. A mark under his chin? She remembered the birthmark she had noticed when Leo was born. A tiny, almost invisible detail that had made her smile. But could it really mean anything? Her mind raced. Could this man somehow know more than he should? Could there be a story she didn't remember? A connection she hadn't expected? She decided to keep her response cautious but honest. "I don't know. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Babies have little marks all the time, but maybe you're noticing something you've been hoping to see." The next few days were quiet, each message from him carrying a weight she couldn't ignore. He seemed distracted, almost restless, as if he were piecing together a puzzle only he could see. And then, one evening, he sent something that stopped her in her tracks. A photo. It wasn't recent. He had dug through old memories looking for evidence, for confirmation. The photo showed a woman, smiling, holding a baby in her arms. The baby had the same tiny birthmark under his chin. And the woman? She felt a shock as recognition hit her. That woman was someone she had once known long ago, years before her life had taken its current shape. Someone important, someone who had disappeared from her life abruptly, leaving questions unanswered. Her hands trembled as she read his message accompanying the photo. I think I know the truth. Could Leo be mine?" Time seemed to slow. Her mind raced with possibilities, with fear, with hope. Could it be true? Could this man really be connected to her past in a way she had never imagined? She looked down at Leo, his tiny chest rising and falling, completely unaware of the storm of thoughts swirling around them. She had protected him fiercely, never revealing details of the past that might confuse or hurt him. And now this? She decided to meet him again. There was no other way to understand, no other way to confront the truth that had been nudged into existence by accident, by messages, by fate. They agreed to meet in a small park, a place quiet enough for conversation but open enough to feel safe. When she arrived, Leo in her arms, she felt her heart pounding. She scanned the park, unsure what she would see, what she would feel. And then she saw him, standing near a bench, hands in pockets, watching the world with that same quiet intensity she had noticed before. He looked up and their eyes met. For a moment, silence held them in a fragile space. She stepped forward cautiously, holding Leo closer. He took a tentative step toward them, eyes wide, lips slightly parted. There was a mixture of disbelief and awe in his expression, as if he were seeing something he had longed for but never dared to believe. "Leo," he whispered almost to himself, bending slightly to look at the baby. The child reached out instinctively, fingers brushing his hand, and a small laugh escaped his lips. The sound seemed to ripple through the man's chest, softening him, breaking the carefully constructed walls he had built around his life. Her voice was quiet, steady despite the emotions churning inside her. "He's 8 months old. He's been my world since the day he was born." He nodded slowly, taking in every detail, the tiny hands, the soft curl of hair, the birthmark she had mentioned in passing. His eyes misted and he swallowed hard. I can't believe this. I never imagined. I don't know how to explain it. But he's mine, isn't he?" She felt a wave of emotions crash over her. Fear, relief, anger, hope, all tangled together. I don't know," she admitted honestly. "I've tried to protect him, to keep him safe. I didn't even know if I could trust anyone, even you. But he is a part of the past you disappeared from, and maybe now it's time to face it." He nodded, taking a careful step closer, hands trembling slightly. "I should have been there. I should have known. I can't change the past, but I want to be here now." I want to be part of his life. If you'll let me." Her heart ached at the sincerity in his voice. She had spent years alone, relying on herself, carrying every burden without complaint, and now, someone she had barely imagined would return to her life, holding a piece of her heart she thought was lost, was standing before her, asking to be included, to be trusted. Can you be patient?" she asked softly. "This isn't easy. I've built my life around him and I can't just hand him over." He smiled faintly, a mix of humility and determination. "I wouldn't ask that. I only ask to be part of it, even in small ways. I'll wait, I'll learn, I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust, and his." Leo, as if sensing the emotions around him, reached up and grabbed the edge of the man's sleeve. The gesture was small, innocent, but it spoke volumes. It was an acceptance, a bridge between the past and the present, between what had been lost and what could be found. They sat on the park bench, talking for hours. She shared stories about Leo's first laugh, the way he clutched her finger in his tiny hand, the sleepless nights filled with whispered songs and soft lullabies. He listened, asking questions, learning, soaking in every detail like it was the most precious thing in the world. And he shared too, not about business, not about wealth, but about the moments he had missed, the life he had taken for granted, the regrets that weighed heavily on him. He spoke honestly, vulnerably, and she began to see not just the stranger who had received a wrong message, but the man who had once crossed her life in a way that left a mark neither of them could forget. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, she realized something profound. The world she had built, small and fragile as it was, could expand. There was room for him, cautiously, carefully, if he proved he was worthy. And more importantly, Leo's life could be fuller, richer, filled with love from someone who had long been absent. When they parted that evening, she felt a sense of cautious hope. The day had been a revelation, a step into a reality she had never imagined. The baby in her arms had changed everything without even knowing it. And the man who had entered their lives by accident, he had become a possibility she couldn't ignore. Back at home, as she watched Leo sleep, she reflected on the events of the day. The wrong message, the unexpected connection, the photo that had revealed more than she had anticipated. It all felt surreal. But one thing was clear. Life had a way of bringing people together, of opening doors when least expected, and sometimes mistakes weren't mistakes at all, they were beginnings. She held Leo close, whispering softly, "Maybe this is just the start of something new, something bigger than us, bigger than what we thought possible." And in the quiet of the night, with her baby sleeping peacefully, she allowed herself to imagine a future where trust, love, and unexpected second chances could create a family she had never dared to dream of. The cafe was small and quiet, the kind of place where people came to think, not talk. The single mom sat near the window, holding her baby close. Her hands were trembling slightly as she stirred her coffee, even though she hadn't taken a sip. She kept glancing toward the door, her heart racing every time it opened. She didn't even know why she had agreed to meet this man. Something about him felt familiar, but she couldn't place it. He had said he just wanted to meet her and thank her for her kindness, but that sounded too formal, too strange. Her baby rested peacefully against her shoulder, his tiny hand clinging to her shirt. She smiled softly, whispering to him that everything would be fine, even though she wasn't sure she believed that herself. Then the door opened again, and this time she froze. The man who stepped inside was tall, wearing a dark coat, his presence quiet yet powerful. The sunlight from the window hit his face for a brief second, and in that moment she knew. Her breath caught in her throat. It was him, the man she had met years ago, the one who had changed everything. He saw her almost instantly, as if drawn by an invisible force. For a long moment they just looked at each other, not speaking. The air felt heavy between them, filled with memories neither of them had planned to revisit. Then, slowly, he walked toward her table. She stood up without realizing it, clutching her baby a little tighter. When he finally reached her, he stopped just a step away. "It's really you," he said quietly, almost in disbelief. She nodded, words failing her. "I didn't think you'd remember." "I never forgot," he replied softly, his eyes moving from her face to the baby in her arms. The baby blinked up at him, curious, then smiled in a wide, innocent smile that made the man's heart twist. He reached out his hand hesitantly, and the baby reached back, grabbing his finger with surprising strength. For a second he just stared, unable to speak. His eyes shimmered and he whispered, "He looks just like me." The woman swallowed hard, her eyes filling with tears she had tried to hold back. "I know," she whispered. "I noticed too." They both sat down slowly, neither sure what to say next. The cafe noise faded into the background. It was just them, the three of them, in a moment that didn't feel real. "I had no idea," he said after a while, his voice trembling slightly. "I didn't know where you went. I looked for you once, but everything happened so fast. My company was growing, there were so many responsibilities, and then I thought maybe you had moved on." "I didn't move on," she said quietly. "I just had to keep going. I didn't even know how to reach you. And when I found out I was pregnant, it was already too late. You were gone, and I didn't want to create trouble in your life." "Trouble?" he repeated, leaning forward. "You think this," he pointed gently at the baby, his voice breaking, "is trouble?" She lowered her eyes, guilt washing over her. "I thought you wouldn't want this. You were from a different world. I didn't want to be someone people whispered about." He shook his head, pain flickering in his eyes. "All those years I thought something was missing. I tried to fill it with work, with money, with everything else. But nothing felt right. And now I see why." She looked at him, unsure what to say. The truth was written all over his face: regret, shock, and something deeper, something that still connected them. "I have to ask," she said softly. "Why now? Why did you suddenly want to meet me after all this time?" He hesitated before answering. "Because of that photo you sent by mistake. I saw his face and something in me just knew. It didn't make sense, but I couldn't ignore it. I kept looking at him, trying to convince myself it was just coincidence. But it wasn't. I saw myself in him." She smiled faintly, shaking her head. "I can't believe all of this started with one wrong message." "Maybe it wasn't wrong," he said quietly. "Maybe it was the only way the universe could bring us back together." There was a long pause. The baby started to fuss, and she gently rocked him, humming softly. The billionaire watched her, the tenderness in her eyes, the strength in her voice. He had met countless people in his life, but none had ever made him feel what she did now. Finally, he said, "I'm getting married in a few days." Her hand stopped mid-motion. The baby calmed down, but her heart didn't. "Married?" she repeated, her voice barely audible. He nodded, looking down. "It's been planned for months. My family, the press, everyone's expecting it, but now, I don't know what to do anymore." She felt a cold wave rush through her chest. "Then maybe you shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "If you're about to marry someone, this meeting could just make things worse." He looked up at her, his voice shaking. "Worse for who? For me or for you?" She didn't answer. Her eyes fell on the baby again, who was now playing with a napkin on the table. "For all of us," she said finally. "You have your life and I have mine. I've learned to survive on my own. You don't owe us anything." He leaned closer, his tone firm but gentle. "Don't say that. I owe you everything. I should have been there. I should have known." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them away quickly. "You can't change the past." "No," he said softly. "But maybe I can change what happens next." They sat in silence again. The baby giggled suddenly, breaking the tension. The billionaire couldn't help but smile, his heart melting. He reached out and touched the baby's tiny hand again, feeling the warmth of life he never knew he had helped create. When it was time to leave, she stood up first. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. "It was good to see you again, even if it's just for today." He stood too, his eyes searching hers. "This doesn't have to be the end." She looked away. "Sometimes endings happen before we're ready." He hesitated, wanting to say more, but he could see she had made up her mind. She adjusted her baby's blanket, took a deep breath, and turned to walk toward the door. As she was about to leave, the baby looked back over her shoulder and smiled at the man once more. That innocent smile hit him like a wave, full of truth and forgiveness. He couldn't move. He just stood there, watching them walk out of the cafe, feeling like he was losing something precious all over again. The air outside was cold, but the mother didn't notice. She walked quickly, her thoughts spinning. She knew this meeting would stir everything up again, but she hadn't expected it to hurt this much. She wanted to cry, to scream, to ask why life always played such cruel tricks. Back inside, the billionaire sat down again, his hands shaking. He stared at the empty chair across from him. The untouched cup of coffee, the faint imprint of the baby's tiny fingers on the table. He had never felt so lost, yet so certain. He knew what he had to do. The wedding, the press, the expectations, none of it mattered anymore. Not when he had just discovered something real, something no amount of money could replace. As the evening light faded, he stood up and left the cafe, walking out into the cold air. The world around him buzzed with noise and cars, people, conversations, but he didn't hear any of it. His mind was clear for the first time in years. He knew where he needed to go next. And as the city lights flickered to life, he whispered to himself, "I'm not losing them again." The night after the meeting at the cafe felt endless. The billionaire sat in his study, staring out of the tall glass window that overlooked the city lights. The room was silent except for the ticking of a clock, each second pressing on him like a weight. He had everything: wealth, status, the perfect wedding planned. Yet it all suddenly felt hollow. He couldn't stop seeing the baby's face. Those bright eyes, the small birthmark under the chin, all reminders of a truth he hadn't known for years. He thought about the mother's calm voice, the strength in her words, and the quiet sadness she carried. She had lived through so much alone, raising a child that was also his, while he had been lost in a world of noise and greed. His phone kept lighting up with messages from his fiancée, from his family, from business partners reminding him of the big day only 3 days away. He didn't reply. He couldn't. Every time he thought about that wedding, he felt sick inside. It wasn't love that had brought him there. It was convenience, expectations, image. By morning, he had made his decision. He walked into his office early, before anyone else arrived. The first thing he did was pick up the phone and call his assistant. His voice was steady, though his heart was pounding. "Cancel the wedding," he said. "Call everyone. Tell them it's over." The assistant was silent for a long second before answering. "Sir, are you sure?" "Everything's already arranged." "I said cancel it," he interrupted gently. "I'll handle the rest." When he hung up, a strange calmness settled over him. It wasn't relief, not yet, but something close. For the first time in years, he felt like he was doing something honest, something that truly mattered. He spent the rest of the day driving, not sure where to go. His mind kept pulling him toward one place, the small neighborhood where she lived. He didn't know what he would say or how she would react, but he knew he had to see her again. The building looked modest but neat, with laundry lines on the balconies and kids playing in the yard. He parked quietly and walked up the stairs, holding a small stuffed toy he had bought on the way, a soft brown bear with a red ribbon. When he reached her door, his heart began to race. He stood there for a long moment, unsure whether he had the right to knock. Then slowly, he raised his hand and tapped the door. It opened a few seconds later, and she stood there, the same tired but kind eyes, the same soft expression that somehow made everything else fade away. She looked surprised to see him. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice gentle but cautious. "I needed to see you," he said quietly. "Please, just hear me out." She hesitated, glancing down the hallway, then stepped aside to let him in. The baby was sitting on the floor playing with a few colorful blocks. When he looked up and saw the man, his little face lit up with recognition. He let out a giggle, crawled toward him, and raised his arms. The billionaire knelt down, his chest tightening as he picked him up. The baby laughed, grabbing his nose and babbling happily. The sound was pure, unfiltered joy, something he hadn't heard in years. He looked up at the woman, his voice breaking slightly. "I called off the wedding." She froze, unsure if she had heard right. "You what?" "I canceled it," he repeated. "I couldn't go through with it. Not after seeing you, not after realizing what I've missed all these years." She looked at him silently, emotions fighting behind her eyes. Disbelief, confusion, and a hint of fear. "You didn't have to do that because of us," she said softly. "I never wanted to ruin your life." He stood up, holding the baby gently in his arms. "You didn't ruin anything. You gave me something I didn't even know I needed, a reason to live for more than money and power. I've been chasing everything except happiness." She turned away, wiping her eyes. "You don't understand how hard it's been. I had no one. Every night I stayed up wondering how I'd feed him, how I'd keep a roof over us. I told myself I was strong, but I was just trying not to break. And now you show up years later saying all this?" Her voice cracked. "I don't know if I can believe you." He stepped closer, setting the baby gently back on the floor. "You don't have to believe me right now. Just let me prove it. Let me be here, for you, for him. I'm not asking you to forget the past. I just don't want to miss another day of his life." She didn't answer. She just stood there looking at him, trying to read his face. For the first time, she saw something real. Not the confident businessman from the news, but a man stripped of pride. Standing in front of her with nothing but truth in his eyes. The silence stretched between them until the baby crawled over and tugged at her skirt, then reached out for the man again, laughing. It was as if the child already knew what was meant to be. She sighed softly. "I don't know where this will go," she said finally, "but I guess you can stay for a while." That small sentence felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. Days turned into weeks. He began visiting often, helping her with groceries, repairing things around the apartment, learning how to change diapers and make bottles. He wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, dropped things, burned food, but he never stopped trying. The neighbors soon noticed how much he adored his son, how he looked at the mother like she was the only person in the world. Sometimes they would sit together on the couch after the baby fell asleep, the silence between them calm and comforting. She told him stories about the early years, how the baby had his laugh, his stubbornness, even his habit of frowning when deep in thought. He listened to every word like a man trying to reclaim lost time. One evening, as rain poured outside, he said quietly, "You've done something I never could. You raised him with love. I want to be part of that now. I don't care about my reputation or what people say. I just want this, us." She looked at him for a long time, her eyes softening. "You talk like a man who's ready to change everything." "I already have," he said simply. Months passed. He began stepping away from his company, giving more time to family and charity. The media was still buzzing about the canceled wedding, but he no longer cared. Whenever reporters asked, he smiled and said, "I found something more important." The mother noticed how sincere he was, how he never tried to impress her, never pushed. Slowly, she began to trust him again. Their small home started to fill with laughter, with warmth, with a sense of belonging that neither had felt in years. One sunny morning, they took the baby to the park. The air was fresh and the grass sparkled with dew. The baby ran across the field, stumbling and laughing as he chased after a butterfly. She sat on the bench, smiling softly, while the billionaire knelt a few feet away, holding out his arms. "Come here, champ," he called gently. The baby turned and ran toward him, falling right into his arms. He lifted the child high, laughing as the sunlight caught both their faces. When he looked at the mother, their eyes met. No words were needed. She saw it, the love, the regret, the promise of a new beginning. He walked over, sat beside her, and placed the baby between them. The little one leaned against his mother, yawning, while the man brushed his small hair gently. "This," he whispered, "is what home feels like." She didn't reply, but a tear rolled down her cheek. Not from sadness this time, but peace. Life wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was real, and sometimes that was enough. As the sun began to set, the three of them sat there quietly, the world moving around them. A simple family bound not by wealth or plans, but by a mistake that turned into destiny, and in that soft golden light, the billionaire finally understood something money could never buy, the feeling of being exactly where he was meant to be.